Good. I like
Our
that.
second guest of the morning, here's Michael.
I like that. And even though those of you watching saw him introduce himself a few moments ago on the break, it's still going to be fun and terrific to introduce Jim Toner, who's going to send out Sailor's Cap today in the very rich Virginia Derby. He's been with us many times. He trained the wonderful Memories of Silver. So, Jim, if you're there this morning, Mark and Mike here in Schenectady, welcome back to the show.
Well, thanks, Mike.
Good morning, Jimmy.
Okay. Good morning, Mark.
Jimmy, when you get a horse like Sailor's Cap, and for our audience, you know, he's bred so strong for turf, and for our audience, he's a distant view out of a caveat mare. When you're training something like this, is it an automatic that he begins on turf? And in other words, what I'm asking you is, when you bring a guy like this along at 2, is it readily apparent he's turf, or do you think about dirt?
No, I don't think it's apparent. What we do is basically, I wouldn't say I like to start him all out on grass, but Barry did give me a heads up on this horse. He said, Jimmy, the horse is going to train good. He said, but he said, don't worry about running on the dirt. He said, the whole family trained good in the dirt. None of them ran well in the dirt. So I figured, well, why waste the time? And then plus the fact is, when you get into October, you can't be, giving them a race or 2 on the dirt and then look up at the end of November to go on the grass. So it all depends on time frame.
Jim, if you look at Sailor's Cap's PPs, as some of us undoubtedly are this morning, and there's the stretch from the Gulfstream allowance going up to Keeneland, it looks like he begins to learn to relax at that time. Was this natural maturation, or did you have to do some serious work to settle him down?
Now, we had to do some work to settle him down, but the fact was the race at Gulfstream was kind of disappointed with that race because it's not, we knew the horse has some natural talent, natural speed, but we didn't want to, we trying to teach this horse how to settle in and relax. And that particular day, I specifically told Cornelia, I said, don't let him get away from you. I said, because if you move your hands, he's gone, and the next thing you know, you look up, and the fact is Graham had an entry in the race. Well, where did I wind up? Head and head with the entry.
Yeah.
So, I'm not blaming Cornelia or anything like that, but it's one of those things where we know the horse, he didn't know the horse, and he just figured, he just give him a little chance to get position with him, but next thing you know, he's gone. So we tried to back off a little bit after that and try to teach him to settle in and relax, and he's adapted to it very well.
Well, one of those relaxed efforts we're going to take a look at now in his performance in the rather rainy Colonial Turf Cup. When our audience picks up this race, your horse is 5th at the top of the screen. Please describe Sailor's Cap's performance a few weeks ago in the Colonial Turf Cup, going 1 mile and 3/16.
Well, it's kind of hard to describe when you couldn't see much.
Yes, we're trying.
We couldn't see who he was or what it was, and I did notice a little bit of a cap coming on the outside, so I thought it was him. But once it broke through and he broke open, I said, oh, my gosh, that's him. So the weather was unbelievable. I mean, it just poured down, and so naturally it didn't hurt us any.
Jim, his last 3 races, all very good performances, have been on soft courses. So my question is, have we discovered a real preference here, or is he just going to be good on both types of ground and going to be okay on a firm surface?
Well, I guess that's what we'll find out today.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he'll handle the firm surface just as well. I think the difference is he handles the soft yielding going. He excels in it.
Yeah.
Where a lot of horses don't handle it. So I think that's where it separates him when you get that soft ground. Firm ground, I think he's just as capable. But then the whole everything evens up for everybody else.
Jim, you're in the hunt. If you win this afternoon, there's a $5 million bonus attached to the 2 races here, plus the Secretariat at Arlington and ultimately the Breeders' Cup Turf. You got to win to stay alive for it, but if he performs well today, is the Secretariat still a preferred race, or might you think about Saratoga?
Well, first of all, the reason it's a $5 million bonus, it's almost impossible to do with a 3-year-old. So I guess that's why they make it $5 million. But now I'm just trying to get through today, and the likelihood that he would run back in 3 weeks. I mean, you take 2 trips down to Virginia. I mean, that's enough. I mean, it's hard. So the likelihood that he would be going to Chicago would be, slim and none, truthfully.
Thank you, Jim. For my part, and here's Mark.
Jimmy, good morning again.
Good morning, Mark.
Couple of days away from Saratoga, so just a couple of questions for you. Your thoughts, first of all, on the New York Racing Association's plan to incrementally increase purses for route races on both dirt and turf. Your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's a very good idea. I mean, I think we're getting back into, trying to get these horses back into running distance races. I think what's happened is we've shortened so many of these races up, and everybody's jumped into this 5.5 and 3/4. So I think to give the people an incentive to start stretching these horses out and start working on these distance races, I think it's a great idea.
Jimmy, 5 years ago, we had no turf sprints in New York. Last year at Saratoga alone, we ran 40, and earlier in the program, we had PJ on, and it sounds like if the weather holds, we're going to have lots of turf sprints again this year. What are your thoughts on turf sprints?
Well, I guess it's if you're geared to it, it's fine. If you're geared to it. I think the whole thing is like we've been, used to the grass races, 2 turns, distance races. So you have to make your adjustments. Then you have to go out and look for your fast horses, your sprint horses, and that type. You have to go get those type of horses and key in on them. If you don't have them, it leaves you, sitting outside and looking in. That's why I'm glad they're coming up with these bonuses for these distance horses.
Jimmy, as always, we appreciate your time. Thank you so much for having joined us this morning on Down the Stretch. All the best with Sailor's Cap later this afternoon in the Virginia Derby, and we'll look forward to seeing you very soon up here at Saratoga.
Well, Mark, thanks a lot again.
Thank you,
See you
Jimmy.
here, Jim.
Jimmy Toner, ladies and gentlemen, the conditioner of Sailor's Cap. It's interesting. Jimmy said the chances of going to the Secretariat are slim and none.
Yeah.
But you got a
boy, if
5
you're alive,
if you're alive.
if you're alive, that's still
Wow.
a lot of money. And wow.
All right, we are up to our final break on this morning's pre-Saratoga edition of Down the Stretch. Thank you so much for having joined us. When Michael and I return, we will welcome in our final guest of the morning, Mr. Gavin Landry. As we go to this break, 3-year-olds in action, Hollywood Park in the Swaps, a 4-horse field.